Now, I sit in this seat with great pride each and every night. The great responsibility is to be able to tell you the truth, to speak freely, and to tell you what I see as a problem, and often to point towards either a solution or certainly something that's going to make the problem less difficult. It's why when it comes to the cost of living stuff, I always talk about the cut in petrol taxes, right? It doesn't solve everything, but it takes just a little bit of pressure off. Sadly, I've got something to tell you now that I don't have a solution to, but we've got to talk about the problem. And I say this as the father of 2 kids in primary school, but I say it as a citizen who wants the next generation to be more robust than my generation, more robust than the generations before. But we all know that it doesn't work like that. We don't get stronger as we move on from the greatest generation of World War II. We get weaker for a whole bunch of different reasons. But yet again, there is more evidence that, just like that fork in the road, we have chosen the wrong way of bringing up our kids. Because the Australian newspaper has been great at keeping an eye on what's happening with our kids. And just like the Who sung about the kids being all right, the reality is the kids are not all right. And yes, I pay particular attention because, as I say, my beautiful little girls are in primary school and one day will go to high school, but I care about everyone who's in this stuff. Now, there was a major survey that has been done of primary school and high school kids, and it says this about primary school kids. 44% cannot calm down quickly when they feel bad. 44% cannot control how nervous that they get. 32% are feeling bad for long periods of time. It's a third of all kids in a primary school. 39% of girls, 29% of boys think they're stupid when someone teases them. That's our littlest kids. Then in secondary school, I have a hard time controlling how worried I get. A majority, 56%. I feel very stressed, 53%. I lose my temper a lot, again, a third, 32%. During the past 6 months, I have felt so helpless, hopeless and down almost every day for 1 week that I've stopped doing my usual activities. It's more girls than boys, but it's 21% overall. However, I like the kind of person I am, about 79% of people. So what is quite odd about this finding is that you have this mixture of tides that are happening inside people where they believe that they're good people, they have some confidence about what's going to happen later in their life, but the here and now is pretty difficult. Now, growing up is always difficult and can be embarrassing, and we all know there's that big chunk of our childhood that we'd like to forget, or that big chunk of our adolescence that we'd love to pretend didn't happen. But, of course, it did. It, in part, makes us who we are. But one of the things I think we can all agree upon is that how we learn to deal with the world as a child obviously helps us inform how we behave as younger adults, and then eventually when we get the opportunity to bring up our own children. The people behind this research have had plenty to say about those findings. Let me read a bit of this to you here, where Michael Bernard, who is currently working in California but used to work here in Australia, says the findings are frankly frightening. The most recent data up to 2023 shows no improvement in the social and emotional well-being of children and adolescents despite considerable efforts of schools and parents. In many cases, they're going backwards. Now, let's be specific to primary school kids. Bernard found a range of areas where well-being of primary school-aged children had significantly worsened since 2018. Children finding it hard to calm down quickly or struggling to describe their emotions have shown a rise. So too, the percentage experiencing hurtful feelings and those having prolonged periods of anger. A major contributor to these challenges is a growing number that are refraining from talking to somebody else when they feel bad. Now, these are the littlest kids amongst us. And yes, my absolute laser focus is because this is my kids' generation. Primary school kids who are not telling anyone what's going on inside them. Now, I know for an absolute fact there's plenty I get wrong as a dad, but something that I'm very pleased I have a conversation with my kids about is about their emotions. Asking sometimes about what the weather's like inside them, about whether it's stormy or sunny or a little bit this or a little bit that, because obviously a kid can only talk about their emotions on a certain level. But I know too that there are plenty of times where they don't tell me. They might say something to mum or they might say nothing to us at all, and that in and of itself is a problem. When it comes to high school kids, again, this bloke, looking back at who may well be the kids that are in your life directly as your children or definitely as your grandchildren, have a listen to this. Many can't find ways to express it, that being tension, nervousness, anxiety. 55% say they don't find someone to talk to when they get stressed out. 31% say they lose their temper a lot. More than 70% say they could be doing better in their schoolwork. Bernard puts this down to a delay in the development of socio-emotional strengths they need to navigate the increasingly demanding curriculum, attributes such as tolerating frustration and time management. He says a telling 2023 data point is the proportion of high school students, more than 1 in 5, who say that at some point in the past 6 months they've felt so hopeless and down every day for a week that they stop doing their usual activities. For girls, it's 1 in 3. I really find this quite disturbing statistics. It points to a really deep-seated issue requiring professional mental health support. Now, I've gone on quite a while and I've shown you lots of data and read you plenty of stuff. And it's not exciting TV to watch somebody reading from the paper on TV. But I wanted to take a couple of seconds here to go, something's wrong. I don't know what the solution is. If automatically you're yelling at your TV and say, well, you know, young kids should be smacked more and national service. OK, that's not going to solve it. Something's going on here. We have to have the best conversations we have with the little kids in our lives and the teenagers as well. We have to find out ways to know what's going on inside their little bodies because they're born into the greatest country in the world that's never been richer, that's never been healthier and that's never been safer. So why do they feel all of these things? Now, again, some people will say it's because they're told about things that young minds can't get their head around, like the history of the country or climate change, and you might be right. They might be spending too much time on devices that means their attention span is not even. A percentage of yours, mine, and certainly even less than our parents and grandparents. But what I really wanted to do was to hopefully connect with someone somewhere in Australia tonight who is feeling the difficulty of being a parent or a grandparent and not being able to communicate with your kids. Or maybe, just maybe, when this conversation speeds around the internet via skynews.com.au or our YouTube channel, that it might get to a kid, might get to a teenager who's kind of into the news but doesn't really talk about this stuff. Well, to both of you, I have the best solution I can offer in a place where I don't have many solutions, which is if you can't talk to the people who are in your family, maybe talk to somebody who's in somebody else's family who's got some expertise in this. The Kids Helpline is an incredible service that we've raised an awful lot of money for, especially during COVID. I was so proud of what you guys did in donating to this cause. If you are under the age of 18 and you've got some issues and you want to talk maybe as a little kid about the weather that's going on inside you or as a teenager about the other difficulties that are going on, write this number down and find a way to call it. They won't judge you, they just want to talk to you. 1-800-551-800. 1-800-551-800. And also there's a thing called Parent Line. If you're a parent or a grandparent and you're struggling with the big issues like this. Now, sadly, I don't have one telephone number to give you. It is different state by state around the country. But go and have a look for Parent Line as well as the Kids Helpline.